Hey guys, Azrael Ravenheart back for round 3 of Grid Draft Resurrection. Of course, you guys might have been wondering what happened to round 2. Well, after my loss of round 1, I had the bye. And, yeah, I mean, I hate buys, but it's just an unfortunate circumstance of tournaments with odd numbers of players. But that's how it goes. So we're back. It's round 3. We're against Gaming Kyra. And yeah, we're gonna go down. We're gonna break down the draft this time as well, along with the opposing team, or at least the opposing Mons, and then the teams that I have come up with for this week's gameplay. Just as a note, in case I do sound a little bit off this week, I'm feeling maybe a little bit under the weather right now. But we're going to try to get through this as best as possible. I've been taking some medicine throughout the weekend and whatnot. So, pardon me. I'm going to do my best to try to catch any coughing and whatnot and not let it get into the video. And if my voice and cadence isn't quite what it normally is, I apologize. I'm gonna do my best, but we persevere. So if this is maybe a little rushed compared to the last one, that might be why. Just because I'm just working with what I got here. So with that, let's get into the draft. This is something a little bit different. I didn't do this for the first round, but I'm going to do this going forward. Just got screenshots of each of the draft packs, and I'm going to break it down a little bit with my thought process during it and cover it. So here we go. So I am pick 1. So we obviously see Vertrag. I used that last time. Definitely worked very nicely. Excellent support mon that threatens to turn the tide of a battle with the gravity ult after it ticks up with its age stacks and charge stacks. Top row is some burn synergy between Polter Ofen and Lava Blob. Middle line has 2 dragons, which definitely stands out to me. Also, Draco Grand plus Yucan is some might stacking synergy a little bit. Brawlish is a little underwhelming to me. Stolby, the entire bottom row is actually just pretty good support mons all around, although not necessarily universally synergistic with one another. I guess Stolby and Oculus have a little bit of debuff overlap, although Oculus doesn't particularly control it that well, since Oculus is mostly built on proliferate. Whereas Stolby is more focused on poison. So one of my weaknesses with my round 1 draft was actually lack of buff diversity, and I didn't really have the ability to generate a lot of buffs and kind of go into that power overwhelming mid game where my team just has tons and tons of buffs and kind of everybody can do somewhat okay damage. And I definitely feel like that kind of cost me a little bit in some of the game states that I was in, because I just felt like my damage was very middling, even when I had all of the buffs that I was focused on set up. And dragons are known for their ability to spam buffs pretty aggressively, and so seeing 2 dragons in the middle line, I elected to go with the double dragons and set myself up for potentially seeing some dragons later on, and knowing that I have a little bit of synergy. Now, obviously, this doesn't necessarily play into a dragon comp yet, because only Drakenov and Dracomur are the two that actually have dragon tribal payoffs. Every other dragon just kind of exists within the space and plays to a similar focus, but doesn't technically incentivize you to be doing the dragon thing. Which is a very, very good thing to recognize, is that while like dragons do the thing that they want to do and they all kind of play into that strategy, you're not locked into that strategy without actually having one of the two that have, you know, a passive that says, you know, you want dragons. Very similar to like how blobs have King Blob that says blobs do the thing. Goblins are the notable one because a lot of the goblins kind of have a goblin passive. So they stand out where they definitely are like a force multiplier on each other. Whereas most of the other tribes that have good tribal support, it's really the tribal support's only on a couple different options. So here, I take middle row. I get Dracogran, Ninki, and Yukan. My opponent takes bottom row, Stolby, Vertrag, and Oculus. And as we did last time, we'll break down the opponent's team a little bit later. So we will move to pack 2. Opponent picks first. Opponent picks right column, Targoat, Tarblob, and Manticorb. And already I am hating my position because we have Tarblob and Oculus are both tether spam, and we have a goat, and this is suddenly looking a lot like last time, where we have an annoying kind of redirection mon in Targoat that's going to be very frustrating to play against, and we have double tether spam, which is, I mean, it's not quite the double blind tether spam that my round 1 opponent had, but tether spam is annoying, although when it doesn't have the mischance associated with it like round 1 had, I could probably fight through it a bit better than round 1. I do think without the round 1 misses, probably round 1 could have gone a bit differently. So looking at this board now, I see 2 very, very standout options, and that's Mad Eye plus Troll. Troll is an obvious death blow offensive mon that really just wants to punch things that have a ton of debuffs in the face, and Mad Eye is one of the best debuffers in the game, so they are an obviously excellent pair together. And then there is the left column, which gives me the Troll, but also gives me Wolf plus King Blob, which gives me a bit more of an all-round setup where I have the Troll to potentially go with other debuffing that I may have access to, not that I have much of it currently, but also gives me just good all-round setup stuff, with King Blob being an excellent piece with so many shift passives available due to how King Blob works. Overheal, Debuff Mastery, Mass Mystify, Curse Chain, just to name a few of the excellent ones, and is a wonderful support healer setup mon. And then Wolf is just an excellent, like, mid-range all-round crit attacker that also applies some debuffing and control via chill. And that kind of works with Troll. I mean, Troll doesn't really care what debuffs. He prefers Poison because Poison Eater is a hell of a drug, but, you know, he's just loving to see any kind of debuffs on the opponent. So those are kind of the 2 standout lines. Here, I actually go with left column to take the full setup of all-round utility, but in hindsight, I'm not sure if that's correct, and I feel like maybe I should have taken Mad Eye plus Troll and really played into the debuffs. I don't know. King Blob is featured a lot in my teams, and so maybe in hindsight, I'm even extra wrong, and I was actually correct here. And we'll have to see how the games play out. But Mad Eye would have definitely allowed me to utilize Troll better, but perhaps I don't need Troll, and the other people that I have dealing damage might actually make up for it. And we'll have to actually see how the games play out. And that's just a matter of time. I think either of those picks are pretty defendable. I don't think any of the other options here, Wolf plus Yowie, I don't think is worthwhile. Blob plus Beat Lloyd, I don't think is worthwhile, and the middle column, I also don't think is just enough of what you would want, especially when you could just take the Mad Eye plus the Troll, and that's just so much higher value than Mad Eye plus Yowie and Beat Lloyd. Um, like I'm very low on Yowie and Beat Lloyd. Beat Lloyd has potential, but I think it's really only in like a very good charge comp, and so I don't have any of that yet. And yeah, I definitely think I took one of the two correct choices here. It's just a matter of which was more correct. So we'll move to pack 3. And hello, Nautilid. Nautilid is, well, known for being one of the two most banned mons when we do banned and restricted formats in Monster Sanctuary PvP, alongside Tanuki, who I had in round 1. Nautilid is known for Mass Mystify and being a really annoying support that spreads debuffs by supporting and then spreads buffs by debuffing. It's a really criminal feedback loop that it gets up to, and yeah, it's disgusting. It's also in a column with a dragon and a debuffer. So yeah, I mean, spoiler, that's probably not really hard to pin that I took that column, given what else I already had. Nautilid obviously being a giant beacon that is obviously going to pull your attention to it. It's really hard to justify not taking it because of how busted of a mon it actually is. And so then you look at, well, what are your options with Nautilid? And it's either Mogwai and Freezy, what Frosty, whatever the hell that stupid thing is, which I guess is like a chill setup, but I don't really have much chill outside of Dog. And I guess that's okay, but obviously going the column, I have Toxic support with Troll, which works with Toxicu, and I have Dragon support with Ninky and Dracogran, and so the column just works way better here. And that's a no-brainer for me. This kind of sets up everything that I really want, and I've got a couple overlapping strategies that I can work with now. My opponent takes right column, giving them Mogwai, Darnation, and Changeling. And while there's not really any obvious synergy between these three mons, what they all are high damage output mons. Darnation and Mogwai both being kind of the big single shot mons, and Changeling just being a general all-around crit monster. And Mogwai has Sure Strike, which is annoying because I do have some access to Blind. And so Mogwai is going to be something I maybe need to focus down if I want to potentially rely on my blind strategies to theoretically cripple my opponent's offense. But what I do know is that my opponent now has 3 very reliable DPS mons, and that is something that they were lacking. They had quite a bit of support, and the only real true damage dealer that they had up to this point is Manticore, who's known for being kind of a glass cannon. So, yeah. Now they have 3 more DPS, and pretty much no matter what they're going to do now, I have to worry about it having 2 to 3 mons that can kill me. And now we go to pick 4. They take Brutus, again, I have to deal with Harambe, Terradryle, and Mulbear. So this is just a couple of really beefy, annoying support mons that really don't like dying, and then the monkey. And, well, we all know what the monkey do. We got some charge support elsewhere in the team to synergize with the monkey, and, I mean, yeah. Monkey's just another damage dealer. Terradryle can kind of act like another Vertrag where it could just build up over time and then threaten to kill later on like turn 10 if it doesn't get bothered with. This pick took me a little bit of time because I really want the Dodo, because Dodo is really, really good, but obviously there's another dragon here. I had to look up what Druid Oak did because I don't remember what that mon does. To me, that mon is pretty dumpster tier, and I don't know if I've ever used it. I'm very low on Turtle. I've never been particularly impressed whenever I've used it in the past. I play a lot of randomizers of Monster Sanctuary. I've done plenty of randomizer runs through the game, and I've gotten the Turtle on many occasions, and I've never particularly been fond of it. And same goes for Keelan. I love the design of Keelan, but I've never really been impressed by Keelan's skill set. Maybe in a shock lineup it has some function, but I don't have that, so needless to say, not really something I want. So neither of the two top monsters particularly tickle my fancy. And the two bottom mons, now that I look at Druid Oak's skill set, it kind of does the same thing that Dodo does, except that it's just a worse Dodo. So that really leaves me in a weird situation where I can kind of get like Goblin King plus Dodo, and then a randomly useless Keelan that I will probably not put on any team. Or I can get a dragon with a Dodo from Wish, I guess, in Druid Oak. Or I can go with the choice that I made, which, given that Druid Oak and Dodo both kind of can fulfill the same role that the Ninkies can fulfill and King Blob can fulfill in being AoE healers that scale off of life, I actually go for Draco Noir plus Goblin King. Because Draco Noir gives me another dragon. Again, I don't have anything paying off my dragon synergies, but he gives me another damage dealer and another blinder, so I have good control over the tempo of the battle with the blind support. He's an excellent damage dealer who wears buffs well, and Goblin King might be the king of wearing buffs and then killing people. As long as you can set up around him and protect him, he is absolutely excellent at just pumping out damage, provided that you can take care of him and set him up. And out of all the goblins, Goblin King is probably the one that requires other goblins the least. If you could stack buffs on Goblin King will just kind of act like Mimic Light and just kill people. And so that's what I went with, and it gave me a couple of additional damage dealers, and now my team has a lot of threat where I didn't really have threats before, because I already have a lot of mons that can flex around and play different supportive roles already. And so I didn't really feel like I needed Dodo or Druid Oak, even though I did really want Dodo, because Dodo is excellent. And so I think I really liked that pick in that it closes out my draft the best way possible. So now we'll move on to analyzing the opponent's teams. So we'll start with their first pick overall, which is Stolby. So Stolby is a very annoying, frail poison support that can act as a bit of a mana battery for the team. Can be an okay healer and has some heal synergy with Overheal via its Dark Shift. It's got some debuff resistance with Anti-Curse. Yeah, I trust this thing about as far as I can throw it, which might actually be pretty far given that it has toothpicks for legs, but this thing is just going to be frustrating to deal with. However, it is, like I said, frail. And so I should have good ways of getting it off the battlefield early. And so I'm not too worried about it in the long run. My opponent does have a little bit of a potential to set up a poison comp, and so we'll see if they field that at all. But I don't think that's going to be where they probably play into. I think they're going to play into more of a more generic tempo lineup instead of anything too debuffy. And the poison, if it does show up, is going to be more incidental. Next, they have Vertrag, which I actually need to, because I changed the way I did this a little bit. There we go. Now I have the buffs going in 2 lines instead of 1, so I'll change it a little bit. There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, so you guys are obviously familiar with Vertrag from last week. I got a nice old triple kill to close out one of the games against Necromage. This thing is the gold standard aging support. It is fantastic with either of its shifts, and it is a ticking time bomb with gravity. If this thing sits in play for 10 turns, supporting and healing its teammates, and eventually that gravity threatens to be a double or a triple kill, it has channel support, it has charge support, it has aging support, and it is just a excellent option at making your team do the thing better. Thankfully, my opponent doesn't have too much aging overlap, so unlike what I had last week, I don't need to sweat that being a problem too much. But yeah, this thing is a confirmed war criminal and now also a confirmed traitor. But we'll deal with it. Needless to say, if this thing shows up, I'm probably going to try to get it out of play sooner rather than later, if humanly possible, because I do know the threat that it poses given enough time. Doubly so, if it's Curse Breaker, I'm definitely going to focus it because I know it'll be a little bit squishier than Mana Potential. Mana Potential, that extra damage reduction that you get, it can really be hard to get this thing out off the battlefield before gravity goes off. And sometimes your best play might just be to try to kill every single thing around it and just play for, okay, you're gonna get 2 or 3 kills with gravity, but hopefully I can just kill everything else on your team before you get any kills on mine. And yeah, you'll kill 3, but then you'll be in a 3v1 again, and you'll have to rebuild up your gravity because you won't have your charge stacks anymore. Oculus, this thing is annoying. It has some blind, it has some tether. It is a nuisance. It has proliferate. It's got fatal upkeep. It's got protected offense, but it can't really AoE shield. I believe all of its shielding comes from encapsulate, so it's locked in completely on single target for that. So this thing is not terribly threatening, but it will be annoying to deal with. It does have some light charge synergy as well. I don't know how I feel about this, and if it does show up, it's more than likely just going to be to kind of harass me with some blind and some tether. We've already kind of went over the fact that there is definitely some tether synergy between Oculus and Tarblob. And tether is annoying to deal with, but you just gotta kind of weather the storm, I guess, in that regard. Tether by itself isn't too bad to deal with. It's tether plus blind that's the real killer, because the miss chance is generally what's going to cost you the game instead of the reduction, because you can usually stack past the reduction from tether. But yeah, it's also slightly frail too. Yeah, we'll see how I feel about this after the gameplay, if it even shows up. This is also one of the things that might just actually not show up. I would like to smash this thing with a hammer, but the problem with that is that I probably won't be able to hit it. Next up, we'll go to the GOAT, the Targoat. Everybody knows what this thing does. It is the single most annoying tank in the game. It has charge support, barrier support. It does everything related to keeping the other people on the team alive, between full protect, single protect, stacking shields, giving damage reduction, and eventually it also just builds up 20 bajillion charge stacks via all of its other crap, and then one-shots something on your team in the meantime. Yeah, I mean, it's the GOAT, and I hate the fact that it's on the other team. It's going to be really frustrating to play against because it just makes finding the kills on the targets that I want off the battlefield almost impossible. And it itself is just really, really hard to get out of play. I will say, it being weak to magic and resistant to fire and water, I have a uniquely good team spread for being able to threaten this thing. I have a lot of magical earth damage, and I have a good amount of magical wind damage, so I do think I may be able to break down this GOAT and get it out of here. And so, hopefully, I'll be able to get through the GOAT. If I can't, I think this thing effectively just wins the round for my opponent, because this thing is just that obnoxious to deal with. I personally put this thing on Tanuki and Nautilid tier, but clearly, yeah, that is my inexperience with PvP, that it's not there, but we'll see. Next, we'll go to Tarblob. This is another tether spammer that has a unique passive in Stuck Tight that offers additional crit for the allies based on attacking tethered enemies, which is, with Oculus, potentially going to make my team just always get auto crit, which is kind of scary. Mana Siphon also potentially sets up mana battering the entire team. Multi-burn, multi-poison with debuff variety adds some weird layering synergies, and Blood Drive allows to stack some extra dot damage on top of your dot damage. Definitely a interesting direction that we could see coming out of Tarblob. I don't know if we're going to see it. It's kind of alongside of Stolby and Oculus. Most of the debuff spam on the opponent's team is those three mons. So I don't know if my opponent's really going to be too committed to debuffing, or if they're just going to splash it in here or there. I mean, they might be more focused on the tether, and then the debuffs just kind of come along for the ride. If I see light Tarblob, I'm probably more interested in trying to get it off the field quickly, because debuff variety is going to kind of stack with tether to be annoying for me to deal with. This thing probably smells bad, and I would like to flush it away as quickly as possible. Then we go to Manticorp. Everybody knows what this thing does. This is the quintessential glass cannon mage DPS that has a little bit of debuffing via Proliferate. Exploit Party allows the opponent to push damage while buffing and shielding for free. Multi-sorcery is going to work pretty well with most of the enemy team. Get some free shields. Protector for some damage reduction for the enemy team. But this thing does one thing and one thing only, and it cranks the damage as much as possible across a bunch of different elements. Don't let the adorable mascot look fool you. It is a known murderous war criminal. We don't really have much to say about this. Everybody knows what this thing does. Now we go to Changeling. This is something that I had to actually look into a decent amount because I never used this thing ever in vanilla. And this is kind of an all-around support or crit DPS that can kind of play a bunch of different roles. It's got either buff mastery or debuff mastery as it shifts, and both of those are very good and have plenty of potential in them. It doesn't have a lot of crazy auras, only heroic party or sidekick support, so it doesn't really offer a whole lot to like what it's bringing to any given particular team comp. But I think more than likely this thing will show up as probably a crit DPS is my guess, especially because we have things like Stuck Tight, and I believe we have Shatter later on off of Mogwai that's set up to enhance our teammates' crits. So Changeling showing up as a crit DPS is probably more likely, and it can definitely be kind of spooky and output a decent amount of damage. And I know a couple people have been testing with some of the newer people to the community, and Changeling's been getting a decent amount of talking recently, and it's been highlighted as a crit damage dealer there as well. So I'm definitely not unaware of what this thing can do. And it's more useful than Ditto ever was outside of the extremely niche scenarios. Next, we got Darnation. And let's be real, we know what this thing does. It's insanely high damage dealing non-crit. It has armor break support, it's got warrior synergy, it's got might synergy. This thing, it knows what it wants, and it does it better than almost anything else, and that is kill. It wants to get buffed up, and then it wants to just keep slapping. Elemental Break, making things take more damage from weaknesses, means that I need to play extremely carefully with weaknesses and resistances, because if I get stacked up with armor breaks and I get caught with a elemental weakness, the chance that I get one shot is even higher than normal. Shield Crush is extremely scary, considering that my team has access to 3 or 4 different overheal options, and so I will almost always have incidental shields available to me. Hard Shell, giving some warrior synergy that is definitely not lost on my opponent's team, as there are warriors everywhere on my opponent's team. Yeah. This murder bug knows only one thing, and it is an absolute expert at it, and it is extreme violence. Following that, we have Mogwai. This is a mon that I have used a bunch in randomizers, and I always am pretty happy whenever I get it, because this thing is an absolute little atrocity that just wants to crit and one-shot the ever-living crap out of you. It's got Dark Instinct to just deal a crap ton of damage, or it can go into a little bit of a supportive role with Cursebreaker, where it has much better stats as Cursebreaker, but you give up the 20% extra damage from Dark Instinct. You've got Multi-Chill, Multi-Glory, Magic Penetration, and Unique Shatter, which is only on a couple different mons, to increase the chance to crit based on chills on the enemies, which is going to play into all of the other crit monsters that we have, like Changeling. And this thing is absolutely terrifying. It wants to hit really, really hard. It is a little bit frail and weak to fire, which I could definitely exploit a little bit. It supports the team with various crit supports and Shatter and Glory. So this is definitely a bit scary. And something I'm going to probably try to get off the field faster whenever it shows up, as it represents a lot of potential damage. Thankfully, we haven't seen too much sorcery support. It's really only Vertrag and Manticorb, which is at least a little bit of a saving grace, because it wants to be next to other sorcery supports. So the opponent's team tends to favor a little bit closer to might than sorcery, I feel. So Mogwai might not be at peak optimization with the rest of the team, but it is still terrifying, and the glory aspect synergizes pretty well with most of the team outside of like Darnation and Brutus. All the other DPS certainly don't mind critting. And absolutely do not let its cute appearance fool you. The snowballs that it throws at you are absolutely filled with solid rock. Next up, we have Molebear. And this is a tanky support that has some bleed synergy and the relatively unique, or maybe actually unique, Wonder Potion ability, which is kind of crazy. It provides a absolute ton of team bulk between Multi-Barrier and Tenacious Barrier, Wonder Potion. It adds so much durability to the opposing team. Now, thankfully, there is no Bleed Out Mon anywhere in my opponent's comp, so the Deep Wound splatter that Molebear offers cannot be fully capitalized on. So I don't really think we're going to see Kyra take too much use of that, because there is no Bleed Out. But that's fine. Just because you can't really make that much use out of Deep Wounds and Splatter doesn't mean that this thing doesn't have a position. This adds so much team bulk. It is insane. Lifelink, when it lands a crit, you heal the whole party for 20% of the damage done. That is nuts, and means that it can play offensive while being a team healer. And we already have gone over how much team crit support that we have between Mogwai Shatter and Stuck Tight off of Tarblob, with the tether stacks that are almost inevitably going to be spammed all over my team. This thing is absolutely going to be a nuisance whenever it shows up. And I'm going to try to smack this Sonic the Hedgehog wannabe upside the head if I'm given the opportunity, although it's probably going to take me more than one bonk on the head to get this thing off of the field. Following that, we've got Terradryle. And, well, this is a chunker. This thing is super, super tanky, and much like Molebear, offers team tank synergies in the form of Magnetize and Multi-Barrier, along with Ancient Restoration for any Ancient synergy, which I believe we have a little bit of. And it's got some shock synergy, but we don't really play into that much with anybody else on the team, although we don't really have any reason to not maybe try to introduce shock somewhere if we can. Stunned and Magnetized are perfectly good, even if they can get introduced just by Terradryle. Holy Presence is kind of nuts. I don't think we're going to go anywhere else, really, with Terradryle if it shows up. And yeah, this thing is just going to be a problem. And similar to Vertrag, it can sit on the battlefield and just build up over time and be a thing that if it doesn't get removed over 10 turns, suddenly it's killing somebody or maybe a couple people. And supports like that are invaluable, because if your support has the longevity to just sit in play and build up age stacks or charge stacks or whatever, and get and just take buffs from wherever it gets them and build and build and build and just be a rock that doesn't go anywhere and suddenly just kill something randomly when your opponent's not expecting your support to just flick a one shot out of nowhere, that's really critical because it shifts the tempo of the match tremendously when, you know, you're often focused on volleying at each other's DPS targets. And if your support suddenly just one-shots something, yeah, that offsets the tempo a lot. And I've been playing a lot of Terraria lately, and just like over there, my goal here is to not get wormed. And then finally, we've got Harambe. The Murder Monkey is back. We know what this do. Turn 1, Power Focus. Turn 2, Ram Charge. Go for a double or a triple kill. That's largely it. This thing is kind of a one trick that can do some other stuff and do a little bit of damage outside of that, but I mean, let's be real. It's really just here to try to get a cheesy double or triple kill and really give you a massive tempo advantage at the start of a game. Now, the synergy is there. We have a bunch of might stacking setups. We have things that want might elsewhere in the team. We have other warrior synergies. We have other charge synergies. We definitely have things that can play to Brutus, maybe even a little bit better than Necromage did. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kyra has a Brutus comp somewhere in the repertoire for this week. And, I mean, the thing with Brutus is often that it can be really hard to break the Brutus comp before it does the thing. Because Brutus is kind of chunky. And especially if it's next to, like, Darnation, which gives warriors damage reduction and debuff resistance, which makes it even harder to get Brutus off the field before he clicks Ram Charge on you. It often means that your best bet is to try to make the Ram Charge not one-shot you, and God, that's really hard to do. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna do what we can, but I don't know, like, I think I've got an okay shot of maybe being able to not get got by the Brutus if it shows up, and we're gonna do our best to just try to put Harambe down if he shows up. And that's it for my opponent's teams this week. So, with that, we will go into game, and we'll go over my teams. So for this week, I have brought 3 teams. 2 of them are a little similar. One is definitely a very big shift. So this first team here that you see is a debuff overheal kind of setup. So we have a Dark Shift Toxiku. This is featuring Debuff Mastery as the shift passive. And this is here to pretty much set up a bunch of extra healing and shields, spam out some extra poisons, apply some buffs on the team, and apply some center of mass for some extra stability onto our team while we're setting up. Pretty much getting our troll prepped to kill people. Then we have our troll, who is one of our main damage dealers in this setup. This is Light Shift Troll for Light Instinct to decrease damage taken. So we're trying to make our troll have some longevity here. Troll known for having Dominance, Double Giant's Bane, and Death Blow. So this guy wants to see lots of debuffs on the enemy and then go munch with Poison Eater and try to kill the hell out of them. I am electing to run Taunt on my Troll because, and we'll see if I may swap this off between games. We don't know. But I'm electing to try to go with it for now because I think Troll protecting somebody like a Nautilid from a potential kill could do more to shift the battle in my favor than harm it. And Troll is fairly tanky against anything that isn't fire. And so, and I've built my Troll a little on the tankier side as well, as much as I can. So that's the aim, is to, you know, maybe get a little bit of taunt value. If I think taunt's a problem between games, I will probably just screenshot my Troll and then skill reset it and literally just swap taunt for probably this attack plus that I haven't taken. It's the only one that I didn't take. Then we've got Light Shift Nautilid for Mass Mystify. I mean, this is the reason this mon is broken and often banned. This thing is just looking to spam non-attack actions to cause feedback loops of debuffing and shielding and buffing, and yeah, it does stuff. And then we've got a little bit of ability to apply some blind in a pinch if we feel like we need it. We've got some buffing access as well, some age stacks to build up, but mostly we're just trying to have this thing be tanky, be annoying, and yeah, cause lots of buffing chain reactions with the ultimate and whatnot, and be a rock that we can rely on to set up and get our Troll rolling. We've got an Overheal King Blob. Now, I go with Overheal because I think it's the best value to get my Troll as set up as possible. As if I can get the debuffs on the enemy, the Troll can just rip through the enemy team one by one. And so the goal is to keep the Troll alive, and I think Overheal does that the best. And with Warlock healing, we pretty much just want to do nothing but click heals on King Blob every turn. That's evidenced by the fact that we have Healing Hand, Restore, and Life Wave all maxed up on our King Blob. That's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to spam everything as much as possible on this King Blob and just get nice fat shields as much as possible. And so we're playing kind of a long game, and then hopefully the Troll just whips through the enemy team. The secondary DPS on the team is a Light Shift Ninki Nanka for Enlightened, so this can spread some buffs around. That is important, as it will help get the team set up a little faster when Ninki Nanka's out, and allow me to kind of recover from a potential double kill or anything like that. And this is just a pretty standard exploit setup Ninki Nanka, where we're going to be looking to attack in and exploit an enemy's weakness and just get a bunch of self-shielding and a bunch of random buffs that we hopefully can spread to our allies and just get a bunch of extra damage. And we are non-crit, as crit requires a little bit too much investment with our current setup. And then our extra backup support is a backup overhealer with a Dark Shift Ninki, also sporting Life Wave and Heal, and then a little bit of extra debuff support with Slime Shot, some extra regen support, and kind of doing a similar thing to Ninki and Toxiku, where this thing can come in, it can spread some debuffs around, or it can spread some buffs around, or just fill in and heal and overheal and do things like that. This team is notably focused on being very, very thick. Everybody is pretty chunky. I want to make it very hard for my opponent to get kills. That way I can stack up debuffs, stack up buffs, and then work through the opponent's team as much as possible. We have Hexing Rod, Slime Skin, Drum, Ocarina on Toxiku. We have Heavy Mace, Totem, Warrior Flask, and Dumbbell on Troll. We don't really have any Might support anywhere in this team comp. And we actually have to fish up Might randomly. But I do think that Dumbbell is a little bit better than other options because I think we're going to be able to generate enough random buffs that I believe the extra value of potentially getting an extra Might and Regeneration stack, and we definitely have Regeneration everywhere in this comp, is worth it because I think there's a very non-zero chance we're able to get those Might stacks, and Troll getting a second Might stack could be the difference between a kill and a non-kill, and over the potential option of like a Fang or a Bracer or anything like that, I think is probably worth it over any other options that we have. So, and it gives him a little bit of additional durability too with the extra health. And so I actually really like that option. Nuddled has Restoring Wand because we are a little soft on debuff removal. And so I elected to go with the extra Restoring. And then we have Hood, Hide, and Drum just for pure durability stats and some extra healing boost. We have Hexing Rod to get some random debuffs while we're doing our thing with King Slime, Crown Hood, and Hide. This, depending on what my opponent does, could flex around to one of the other support weapons as well. Ninky Nonka has Swallow, and then Bracer, Hood, and Hide. Lots of health, and then lots of damage. Pretty much trying to leverage that as much as possible. And then Ninky, same thing again. We're a little soft on debuff removal, so I'm itemizing for it. And then Hide, Crown, and Slime Skin. So this is the debuff overheal comp. Pretty much just trying to stall for a little bit in the early game while we set up buffs and get Troll set up to sweep with Ninky Nonka as a backup sweeper. The second team I have is a hyper offense team. So this team is looking to play much, much more aggressively than the first team. And we are looking to abuse the crap out of Might and Sorcery stacking and even Glory to a degree. So we have a Light Shift Goblin King with Eternal Heart to make our Goblin King tankier. And our Goblin King is just focused on being a buff-wearing crit monster with access to multi-might and multi-sorcery, along with improved assault. He has his own strike mastery as well, and can generate a bunch of random buffs via critical mass. And the reason I went with Eternal Heart instead of Dual Wield is simply to make Goblin King tankier. I like my DPS not dying, because you deal 0 damage when you're dead. And so, with a hyper offense team that wants to just get a bunch of buffs stacked up and then sweep, I think that this is a little bit better. And we are going to be able to buff up really, really hard and then turn the corner and just start hammering really, really aggressively. We have a Yukan. This Yukan is built a little bit more defensively and a little bit more supportive instead of a bit hyper aggressive. We have Divine Shield to get some free shielding and some charge stacks while it gets buffed up. It can apply some buffs as well. Some might and some shared might. We've got Brawn over Brains as well. And then it's got a little bit of healing. It's got situational support with Fortress, which is an excellent combo builder. And then it has the ability to turn the corner via Water Surge or slash once it gets some charge stacks built up. Maybe on turn 3, I'm thinking, is when it could probably turn to threaten a kill. It'll be fully buffed up and charged up a bit. More than likely, this is going to be a turn 1, pretty much like full send on buffs, and then turn 2, Yukan is going to use situational support and fortress in order to generate a ton of combo. And then we're going to look to get a kill with Goblin King. And then on turn 3, we can pretty much have everybody attack. So the goal with Yukan is to be fairly durable support who can definitely turn the corner and start outputting damage once everybody is set up. We've got the Nautilid again because this thing is a nuisance. Like, same exact setup as the first team, and you're going to see this on the third team as well. Literal same setup again. It just applies random debuffs and applies random buffs, so it's just a good overall mon to have, and it's got improved assault as well, so it just makes your team do more damage. Then we've got Dracogran. And Dracogran is a great offensive monster who carries both Brawler and Sorcerer. Meaning that if this thing is able to find a spot where it can exploit an enemy's weakness, it's going to give itself a Might, a Sorcery, 2 shields. And that is just so much free value to just buff itself up while being on the offensive. And it's another improved assault. I have so many copies of improved assault on my team that this team can really turn the corner once everybody gets buffed up and just start cranking out damage. And this is going to be a very big tempo shift compared to my first team, which is looking to play a bit more controlled of a pace and a bit like slower of a pace, whereas this team is looking to maybe set up for a turn or two and then punch you in the mouth every turn after. We've got a can't be dodged skill in Whirlwind, and we have a can't be dodged skill in Lava Stream, so I have some ways of getting through potential Spell Shield or Agility, both of which I believe my opponent has access to. And so Dracogran will look to kill things. And we are Darkshift Blacksmithing to make everybody on my team more effective, as opposed to having Dracogran be a little bit more useful by itself. We have a Light Shift Ninki. This is for Enlighten, so this is a potential lead option to allow the lead team to be able to turbo buff a little faster while offering some regeneration support setup on the early turns and give my team a little bit of extra stability in those early turns. And then it has access to Double Cascade, meaning that once it gets a pile of buffs on, it can still output respectable damage even as a support. I mean, Slime Shot is a 6-hit move. With Double Cascade, it's going to deal some amount of damage and build a okay amount of combo. It's also got double Overcast, so it will hit an okay amount. And then we've got a Light Shift Spectral Wolf. This is going to be Equipment Mastery, giving it an additional accessory slot, allowing it to get to pretty nice crit numbers, as you see up there, while still maintaining a pretty respectable amount of bulk. This thing also has some age set up between Outlast, Aging, and Primal Rage, meaning that it can threaten to sit in play and build up a little bit. It's got Gravity, so it can kind of do the Vertrag thing with Aging and Gravity. It's got crit support with Shatter, so also threatens to make my other crit DPS a little bit more effective. And since we have a bunch of random buff support, we've also got, like, Glory's going to be more effective for my team as well. He's got Lifesteal too, so really able to kind of sit and play and do things after he gets in. So this team is just capable of dealing a lot of damage and putting a lot of pressure on the opponent. And that's what I really, really like. And this is why I'm not really sure about that one pick where I took King Blob, Spectral Wolf, and Troll instead of Troll and Mad Eye. Trolling Mad Eye gives me a much better Troll Deathblow comp. But I lose the King Blob Overheal and like having Spectral Wolf here on like this hyper offense comp. I lose all of that utility and all those all-rounders that I can plug in on these comps just to have a really good, like, that first team gets way better if that Toxiku is a Mad Eye, or one of the Ninkies or Ninky Nankas is the Mad Eye, and I just have an additional debuffer with Debuff Mastery that plays into the Troll Deathblow comp even more. But then I lose an entire role player in this team, and I lose the extra overhealer for the defensive stability in 2 of my teams in King Blob. So I really don't know whether that pick was right or wrong. As for items, our Goblin King has Scythe, Fin, Bead Chain, and Buckler. I am electing to make some itemization options for durability. I love my damage dealers not dying. And I think so many people are really, really fixated on, like, crit monster do big damage, and, like, where is, like, my coat or whatever for, like, big crit damage and stuff like that. And that's fine, but the extra, 600, 700, 800 health that I could put on some of my DPS mons, if that causes a critical survival on pivotal turns, that is so much more valuable than 20 crit damage. And I would rather play to those game states than that extra little bit of damage. And while I absolutely accept the fact that the reverse is true, maybe that 20 crit damage causes a critical survival on my opponent's team. But my team setup has a lot of buff stacking and a lot of, like, improved assault stacking and stuff like that, that I think I like the justification of itemizing a little bit tankier on this team and hoping to throw off my opponent's calculations with that. Our UCAN, we have Hammer, Fin, Bead Chain, and Coat. Again, going really, really tanky here. Getting the crit chance because I'd rather crit than not. Maybe we stack a little bit of crit damage for it, but that's fine. Nautilid, same setup as the other comp. Draco Grand, Scythe, Fin, Coat, and Bead Chain. Ninky, same setup as last time. And then we've got Scythe, Fin, Infinity Flame, Coat, and Bead Chain. And, sorry, not Coat. What's the other one? Cape? Cape, not Coat. So yeah, we have again really good durability. Like, 6100 health is our lowest health, and that's on a mon that has 480 defense. We should be pretty well set up to slug it out a little bit and then recover back while we're brawling. And that's kind of what I want out of my offensive comps, is the ability to brawl a bit instead of just going all out glass cannon. And for our third team, we have what I'm calling kind of a stall control, although it might actually not really do that much. And this team is the team where I feature a bit more blind. So we have a Light Shift Equipment Mastery Draconor, who is going to be looking to really suppress the opponent's output with blind spam and the ability to just crit their face off with claws and stack up buffs. This thing is actually a DPS in disguise that can happen to blind you up if the situation calls for it. But this guy is actually just a damage dealer on this team, who's disguised as a bit of a support. We have a Dark Shift Overheal Ninky Nanka, who is here to stack up regen and apply Overheal via the regen. But outside of that is actually another damage dealer sporting double exploit, double impact. So looking to hit the enemy's weakness and trigger a whole pile of extra stuff off of it. We have a unshifted Ninky using a Gray Pearl to optimize its damage output. And this is a damage dealing Ninki that is looking to just put out as much as possible, featuring every bit of damage output that we can with level 5 attacks, double cascade, double impact, and all the exploiting stuff that we can. We've got our Overheal King Slime back to apply some debuffs while being an Overhealer. We are setting up for the Troll, as we are kind of a debuff comp, kind of a blind comp. We're like a little bit in the middle of the other two comps, and that we can definitely pressure a little bit harder than the first comp, but we cannot pressure quite as much as the second comp. But we definitely have a lot more like long-term stability compared to the second comp. And then we've got the Nautilid again. And this time we will definitely be using Shadow Grasp a little bit more on this compared to the first one, but probably not. We'll probably leave the blind spam mostly to Draco Noir, because this guy really doesn't want to be clicking an attack if he doesn't have to. Equipment, we have Scythe, Fin, Omni Ring, Coat, and Bead Chain. Again, itemizing to be that little bit more defensive. Yes, I could have more crit chance. Yes, I could have more crit damage, but I'd rather have this thing be tankier and be able to take that hit, especially when I'm running next to overhealers and getting 5 or whatever stacks of regen, and that extra max health is even more valuable. We've got Swallow, Totem, Hide, and Bracer for the Ninki Nanka. We've got Moon Sword, Mage Flask, Pandora's Box, Grey Pearl for Ninki. Hexing Rod, Crown, Hood, and Hide. This could also swap to any of the other supportive accessories or weapons. Same setup on the Troll again. And then the same setup on the Nautilid again. And this is looking to play in the middle speed between the other two. The Draco Noir definitely capable of putting out more offensive pressure than I thought it would. I did not realize that while it looks like it could be kind of a bit supportive, it is not nearly as supportive as it looks to be. And maybe it should actually be on the Hyper Offense team, because it actually can wear buffs pretty well and deal out quite a bit of damage. And maybe I need to actually relook at the Hyper Offense team and sub somebody out for this Draco Noir on that team. I don't know. Don't be surprised if in the gameplay video you see the Hyper Offense team running this Draco Noir. I'm just going to throw that one out there now that I'm thinking about this live while I'm recording. This guy might make an appearance in the Hyper Offense team, because this thing wearing like 4 might buffs and 4 sorcery buffs seems like it could be a problem for the other team, especially with how high his crit stats are. But yeah, that's that. That's my teams for this week. That's my opponent's stuff. My voice is definitely kind of stressed at this point, so I'm gonna wrap it up there. I'm not really gonna stress the outro or anything. This video is probably going to go up while I'm working on setting up the gameplay video. They're probably going to come out fairly close back to back with each other, just because I don't want this to go up like as I'm getting ready to play and have my opponent flick through the video and get an idea of what I'm planning on doing. So, you know, stuff like that. But I'll see you guys in the next video, where you will see my live gameplay for this round against Gaming Kyra. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.